Hello everyone and welcome back to My Opinion. And going back to the first game of this competition between Sri Lanka and Afghanistan, with the way Sri Lanka folded with both bat and ball, I did not expect them to be lifting the trophy after the completion of the final. This really has been an immense turnaround and really well done to them. Now, even though they lost against Afghanistan in the way they did, I still thought they'd get out of the group along with Afghanistan, simply because looking at Bangladesh's T20I form, I couldn't see them beating either Afghanistan or Sri Lanka, even if one of those two teams had experienced a drubbing in their previous game. And so they both got out of the group. Now, on this observed trend of them batting better when they bat second compared to when they bat first in this Asia Cup, I wouldn't really go by that trend too much in terms of kind of looking at the strengths and weaknesses of the batting side. I think that before this tournament began, whether they batted first or second, they still weren't putting up good totals consistently. And quite a lot of the time, we kind of saw them slump to some very heavy defeats because their batting also wasn't firing. And this puzzled me greatly, and I've been very happy that ever since that first game, the batting has come to the party. I think that especially in the game against India, where chasing 174 against that attack on that surface was not going to be easy. And with the way Kusal Mendes and Pathum Nissanka went about their business with the opening partnership, and then with how Bhanuka Rajapaksa and Dasun Chanaka finished the game off at the end, I think that was probably the most impressive batting performance as a collective, I thought. Even when India were getting back to the game and after a bit after the openers were dismissed, Bhanuka Rajapaksa and Dasun Chanaka did not panic and they got the job done in the end. And yeah, so I think that finally, after a long while, we've seen a consistent kind of a stretch of games where this batting unit has stood up. I think in white ball cricket rather. I think the win against Australia in the home series in the ODIs and also in the Tests will go. Sorry, I think the draw in the Test will go a long way because I thought the likes of Kusal Mendes really showed form in the Test series. He has continued that in this Asia Cup. And also, I think, finally this batting lineup has batted the way which I thought they should have done for the past few years. And especially in the final when I think there was 67 for 5, 58 for 5 actually in 8.5 overs. And if you're looking at the two players that were batting at that point in time, in Bhanuka Rajapaksa and Waindu Hasaranga. Now, in the former's case, I think that we've seen him play cameos a lot of the time. His game looks in order, and when he plays those cameos, they really are good to watch. But the one thing we haven't seen is that real kind of the match-winning contribution. And I think in this game, he really pleasantly surprised me in the way how much responsibility that he showed is something that we haven't really seen before. For example, I think in the game against Bangladesh, where Sri Lanka did win, but I think it was a prime situation for him to really show what he could do. Unfortunately, he was dismissed early. It's kind of moments like that where if you do kind of score, he scores a cameo, but he rarely goes on to play that match-winning knock, despite how good of a player he is. Yesterday he did that. It was a brilliant knock, 71 of 45. And Hasaranga, in my view, in the IPO had a pretty nothing batting season, and it did disappoint me because we've seen what he can do in international cricket. And yesterday as well, he was very good, 36 of 21, and the contribution of those two really helped Sri Lanka recover from the very difficult position that they were in, 58 for 5, and then ending up with 170 for 6 against this kind of an attack was really good going from them. And I think on the bowling front, it is still a work in progress. Yes, Dilshan Madhushankar has emerged in this tournament, and I still I think that he can be in the side. I think he adds something. In terms of new ball bowling, we've seen that both Chamira and Lahiru Kumara did provide that potency. However, I think Lahiru Kumara, he's kind of struggled to get on the park recently. So having someone like a Madhushankar there to open the bowling with Chamira, I think will be quite a good new ball attack, especially with the potency of Chamira and with Madhushankar learning as he goes along. I think for a first tournament, I think he should be happy with what he's done so far. But also, I think I spoke about this before after the T20I series against India before, when they have struggled to get that third seamer in. Now, they've got Chamika Karunaratne and also, I think, Pramod Madhushan, who got 4 wickets yesterday. But I still think that in terms of Karunaratne, they kind of look for him to play that enforcer role at times. I still do think there'll be much different bowling in Australia than bowling here, but I guess for this tournament, their attack did get the job done, and I think they should be very happy with their Asia Cup win. And of course, with the spinners, Mahesh Theekshana and Hasaranga, I think they do have a few bowlers there, but I'm sure they'll admit that the bowling is work in progress. And on the death bowling front, they didn't really have to use that skill at all, simply because I think Bangladesh hit 180 odd against them in the second game of their campaign, and in India's case, the wickets were tumbling a lot of the time, and because of that, the score was kind of inhibited, rather kind of limited, rather, because of the fall of wickets. So they haven't really had to use that skill a lot, and they will certainly have to use that skill in the future, especially when playing in Australia, where there won't be as much, anywhere near as much receptiveness for this attack as there was in this case. So the bowling is a bit of a work in progress. Now, I think with the batting misfiring in the last few years and months, the problem was that I think the facet of the game which should have taken care of itself was misfiring, meaning that the bowling, which is already work in progress, had a lot more pressure on themselves, and they didn't get the job done on many occasions, unfortunately. Whereas since the batting has finally started to kind of, on a consistent stretch of games, have seen the batting firing, I think with the capability of these players, whether batting first or batting second should be irrelevant. It's a quality lineup if you're looking at the individuals. And I still think the likes of Niroshan Dikwela could be included in the side, I think, at some point in time, but let's see how that goes. So on the batting front, I'm very happy that for a run of games now, we've seen the batting lineup fire. And yeah, they should be really happy with the way that they've gone in this Asia Cup. Regarding Pakistan, I think especially 3 players have had great tournaments. I did not expect Naseem Shah to take the tournament by storm as he has done. He's been outstanding with a new ball, and he hasn't really got too much kind of white ball bowling exposure at this level. And I think especially in the national side, he only made his T20I debut against India in the first game of their campaign, but he's been outstanding in this tournament. And Shadab Khan and Mohammad Nawaz have had brilliant tournaments. I'm not surprised that Shadab Khan has had that kind of a tournament, but especially Mohammad Nawaz, despite being a good player, he's stepping into Imad Wasim's shoes, and they're huge shoes to fill. And I think with what he's done in this tournament, he could not have done any more than what he has done, and he's effectively won a game for his side. He's scoring 42 off 21 against India in the second innings, and I think only conceding 25 runs in the first innings, when the faster bowlers were getting hit around. So with the ball and the bat, both those two have been outstanding, and I think there will be a toss-up between Mohammad Nawaz and Imad Wasim, but I think with the levels of performances that those two are putting out, it's a good problem to have. So that's on him. And on Mohammad Rizwan, he has scored a lot of runs at very good averages throughout his T20 career, 281 runs in 6 innings at an average of 56.2, but his strike rate overall for this competition is 117.57. Now, on two occasions he has scored close to that 140 mark after starting slow, which he usually does, but he catches up at the end. I think he scored 270s against Hong Kong and against India, where he scored at almost 140. But I think one thing which we have seen so far in this Asia Cup, in this Asia Cup, where it does reduce his strike rate at the start, is his negotiation of the deliveries outside of off stump. Now, of course, they are hard deliveries to negotiate for any batsman, and even harder to score off, you could say, in some cases. But I think we've seen either one of two things, especially at the start of the innings when he faces these kind of deliveries. It's either he kind of loses balance a bit, he kind of walks forward out of the crease after he's played the delivery, he's kind of played and missed at it. And the other case is he just tries and flays at it, but he misses it in the end. And I think, especially at the start, the fast bowlers will target this line, and with the ball moving around as well. If you can't get singles consistently, at least off that kind of bowling, then it does get difficult. And that's why I think his strike rate could be higher than what it is, especially at the start, if he kind of finds a way to score even singles more consistently off those deliveries. But I think with those deliveries beating the bat on a number of occasions, even 4 or 5 deliveries is enough at the start to really kind of reduce his strike rate. He has shown that he catches up at the end, but even then, I think if you're weighing against the very slow start, I think that even then, you'd still say it would be much better if he started off quicker against that kind of bowling at the start, because I think it kind of is limiting Pakistan's overall score, especially with the way the openers look to bat, and especially with what's to come, which I will talk about. And we've seen that just like Suryakumar Yadav, we've seen that Suryakumar Yadav kind of targets that square leg region a lot of the time. He kind of sweeps the ball to that in that region. But in Mohammad Rizwan's case, he kind of picks off bowling to that backward square leg and square, kind of pulls the ball through that area. I saw especially one time against Arshdeep Singh in the second game against India. The ball was slightly outside off stump. It was angling in, and he used the angle to get the ball to, I think, the backward square leg or square leg region. I think the square leg region. So it is something that he uses to combat, or rather score off that kind of a delivery. But I do think that still, if he negotiates it's kind of that kind of delivery a bit more at the start, then it would help him and the team. And I personally think that Fakhar Zaman should open the batting along with Babar Azam, with Rizwan batting at 3. And I think out of Rizwan and Babar Azam, I think Rizwan has shown the increased capacity to be able to bat at 3 in this format, I think, when you're looking at the careers of those two. And the reason why I'm saying this is because if you look at their first 17 deliveries of their innings, I think in this tournament, in my view, they get about 13 runs in the first 17 deliveries. And you're already, half of the power play is already gone. You're not really maximizing the output from the power play. And about this whole setting foundations thing. So I think especially if you're looking at the way Babar Azam bats, his role in the side really is to set that foundation. But if you get 13 runs of the first 17 deliveries, and after a while, you know that Babar Azam, after a certain point in time, his job in the innings would be done, and he wouldn't really have too high of a strike rate at that point in time. But what they would take from that is that they'd have the platform for them to accelerate. But the problem is, it is kind of limiting the score you're going to get overall. I think when they're playing in the UAE, and I think for them, probably their periphery they look to get is that 180 side, especially when they're playing against the test nations. I think that's the kind of thing they look to as a maximum point, and they've got the bowling attack that they've got, and that's what they rely on. But I think if you've got a case where even Rizwan starts off slowly, so does Babar Azam, and he kind of goes through the entirety of his innings while he's batting, then it puts a lot of pressure on the likes of Fakhar Zaman and the others to come. So that's why I think Zaman batting up top along with Babar Azam will alleviate that pressure. Another thing is they set the foundation for the hitters to come in and do their work. But even if you look at the ODI side as well, you've seen that a lot of the time it kind of requires the likes of Imam ul Haq and Babar Azam to take the innings very, very deep, because it's a fact that the hitters to come, they don't really occupy the crease for that long. And I think that pretty much is the problem, a lot of the problem here, that even if they have 15 overs to go in an ODI game, you can't really back the others to really bat out those 15 and score runs as well. So I think that is a huge problem that they've got. And yes, it's outside. You can be critical of the way that, especially both the openers start, along with kind of what you expect the finishers to do. And I'm saying, from the outside, it seems like, okay, they're kind of being more conservative. But if those two openers get out, then we've kind of seen the problem that the longer that the players in the lower middle order have to occupy the crease for, they kind of struggle more. And especially we saw in this game the case where I just don't think the likes of an Iftikhar Ahmed, Kustil Shah, I don't think they're at the point in kind of their cricketing maturity where they can occupy. I don't think the occupying the crease has been a problem for Iftikhar Ahmed, but I do think it has been for the likes of Kustil Shah. But also kind of getting those quick runs after the openers have set the foundation. I think that if you're not really confident in them at this point in time, since they're not really providing that kind of an output, then the openers setting the foundation can also serve as a risk, is considering it may result in Pakistan not getting enough runs on the board. So I think they really have to look at their batting. In my view, it should first start off with Zaman opening the batting along with Babar Azam. And also, I think at the number 4 slot, we've seen Iftikhar Ahmed. Now, in terms of bowling and batting, there was a player who's a right-handed batsman and bowls right-arm off-spin, and that was Mohammad Hafiz. Now, what I got from seeing Iftikhar Ahmed bat and bowl was that the reason why Mohammad Hafiz was dropped on purpose, really, despite the fact that he was doing well for quite a bit of time. He's retired recently, but I think 1 or 2 years ago now from international cricket. But I'm saying he was doing quite well, but the only reason why they wanted to push him out the side is because of his age. And in the end, we're kind of seeing that with the way he was playing at number 4, I think even scoring centuries at number 4 in T20 games, winning Pakistan games, and also with how difficult his bowling is to get away. I think that someone like him would have been a really kind of a big asset for Pakistan in this case. The likes of Shoaib Malik are available, but I think in terms of Australia, with the way that he plays the short ball, which a lot of the players at the side I think would struggle in the short ball against Australia, well, in Australia rather. So I think there are pros and cons of including him in as well, but if in the subcontinent, I think I wouldn't really mind giving him a go. So that's on the batting front. And in terms of the bowling, I think someone like a Haris Rauf is the main death bowler on the side. Yes, Shani Wazdahani is out injured, but someone like a Haris Rauf is also the main death bowler on the side. And yet, despite the fact he has all the talent in the world, he goes for runs way too often than he really should. And it has confused me quite a lot. He bowls 150 kilometers per hour. He has the smarts, but unfortunately, he does go for a run. So I think if the injured Shani Wazdahani when he returns, I think they will have kind of on paper a very good death bowling combination, and it all remains to be seen if Haris Rauf can utilize the skills that he does have, and along with Shani Wazdahani, I think it will make a very good death bowling combination, and the likes of Shaheen Shah Afridi will return to provide the new ball threat as well. So I think it's a very good attack. Unfortunately, with how in recent times they've really shown how good they are against India. They showed how good they are in the first 10 overs of this final. But unfortunately, I think the challenge for them would be when they play against the likes of an Australia, which on the bowling front, they haven't really kind of shown that cutting edge which they do against when compared to playing India in recent times. So I think especially in the bowling front, there's a lot of talent in the side, and I think in the batting they really have to look at their thing where the openers are trying to set the foundation, but at this point in time, are the players who walk out really and in the position to, one, occupy the crease, and two, really make use of that platform. So that's something that they will have to think of. But yeah, regarding the T20 World Cup for both these sides, I do think Pakistan's batting will struggle in Australia. I do think Sri Lanka's bowling will struggle in Australia. So I don't think whether either side had won this competition, I do still think that they'll have a bit of difficulty in the T20 World Cup based on the conditions that they're playing in. But yeah, I mean, really well done to Sri Lanka for winning this competition, and I think in the India-Australia series is starting in, I think, 8 days' time, and then the India-South Africa series, 2 pivotal series going into this T20 World Cup. And I think the squad has been announced, so let's see how those mentions do in those series. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe, please share it with your friends, and remember, this is my opinion, what's yours?